faded photograph is 6 decades old, but I still recognize the bewilderment on my 4-year-old face as I squint into the bright sunshine of our brand new home in Southern California, the landscape still barren except for a couple of palm trees. My family has just tumbled out of our cramped station wagon after driving 1,800 miles from St. Louis. My 3 older siblings, dad, and mom pregnant with my little sister. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley in the 60s and 70s, mom handling domestic operations, while dad focused on his medical device company, serious and remote at home, except for those memorable bouts of paternal discipline. My sister Susie and I were 2 years apart, best friends, and partners in all things Barbie. Becky was considerably older, and Carol considerably younger, with the only boy, Steve, firmly enthroned as prince. A born prankster, little Stevie got off to an early start at age 2 or 3, when, according to family legend, he stuffed his jack-in-the-box full of cookies, announcing when caught, "I, a sneaky boy." One of his favorite tricks as a teenager was to hide behind a hall door, waiting for an unsuspecting sister, and then jump out screaming, "Booga, booga!" and giving her a heart attack. Still, any attention from Big Brother was a thrill. We worshiped him. Our family remained tight-knit, even as one by one we moved out to start our own lives. Pursuing his love of art, Steve moved to Europe and kept in touch mostly through colorful postcards. We 4 sisters remained close and were the bridesmaids at each other's weddings, each of us taking a turn as maid or matron of honor. As the grandchildren came along, our oldest sister settled near Tacoma, and the 3 youngest were about an hour or 2 from Mom and Dad's house. Occasionally, the whole family would get together for a huge Christmas celebration, the empty rooms filled once again with laughter and mountains of crumpled gift wrap and the scent of our mom's hot cinnamon cranberry punch. We got together and threw a surprise birthday party for our mom's 65th, and then collaborated again a few years later to celebrate our parents' 50th wedding anniversary. Over the next decade, our kids grew up and our parents grew elderly. With medical issues I did my best not to notice. Mom's chronic high blood pressure and arthritis, Dad's heart disease and encroaching memory loss. Living about an hour away, I was busy with my own job and my own family, and so I only saw my parents maybe once every month or 2. But whenever I stepped through that familiar front door, the scent of my mom's fabric softener just enveloped me like an embrace. A prolific artist, her cheerful paintings and sculptures smiled at me from every crook and cranny. And though she was having trouble getting around now, Mom was still my loyal cheerleader and supportive as ever. Dad would always try to slip me a few bucks whenever he could. With my head planted firmly in the sand, I refused to listen to that small, quiet voice telling me that they would one day be gone. When Mom brought up what would happen to her treasures, I humored her by putting my name on the back of a favorite painting and then quickly changed the subject, assuring her we'll deal with all that when the time comes. Then in 2013, I shepherded my parents across the country to see my brother's new home near Minneapolis. I walked into the kitchen after a wonderful dinner prepared by my sister-in-law to help clean up, when she pulled my brother and me aside, saying in a gentle but firm voice, "It's time for you guys to start talking about your mom and dad." Huh. Well, what did she mean? I mean, yeah, they were slowing down, but they were okay, right? They were not okay. 3 months later, I got a call from Susie saying Mom had been rushed to the hospital barely conscious. I jumped into my Prius and sliced through LA traffic to meet with the doctors who determined that she had overdosed on a blood thinner. Baffled, Susie and I went to the house where we saw dozens of bottles of pills. She had been prescribed a variety of medications and, throwing nothing away, as her generation had been taught, became confused about what she should take and when. Blindsided, my siblings and I rallied to come up with a plan in a flurry of emails and phone calls. Thankfully, Mom survived the overdose, but she came home to a house overrun with caregivers, therapists, nurses, and housekeepers. Even with all the extra help, her ability to function went downhill over the next year. It was nearly a full-time job to manage. I kept my bag packed and my gas tank full. Then Mom, while she was surrounded by an army of caregivers, my dad's ability to function went slowly downhill. Oh, he'd drive to work every day and then take a nap on the couch in his office while Susie tried desperately to keep the business afloat. His ability to manage his car became an increasing concern. He was no longer able to find his favorite restaurant. And then one day, when he was leaving the McDonald's, he mixed up his gas and brake pedals and plowed into another vehicle whose occupants were mercifully uninjured. But he felt so bad that the kindly police officer who responded downplayed the whole thing and assured him, we all make mistakes, rather than report it. Before he could do any further damage, Dad ended up in the hospital with a life-threatening gallbladder infection. We siblings decided that it was time to bring in a neurologist. So they came in and diagnosed it conclusively. Dad had Alzheimer's. We figured that this was our God-given opportunity to help Dad make the tough choices. All of a sudden, boom, he was retired with no driver's license and no financial responsibilities. The amazing thing was the grace with which he took the news. It was as if he were relieved of a burden that he could no longer carry. However, it was now nearly impossible for both him and Mom to receive the high level of care that they needed at home. So we found an assisted living facility that wasn't too far away with memory care. Mom was heartbroken to leave her home, but she was determined to go wherever he did. So in a whirlwind process, Dad moved in and quickly became the darling of the dementia unit, joking and even dancing during the music hour. Unbelievable. The only thing he missed was Mom, who had become ill again and had to recuperate at home before she could join him. My brother and sister-in-law flew out to take care of Mom for a couple of weeks, and they volunteered to help downsize the closets and organize what they would need in their new place. I was grateful for the break. After they left, though, Susie saw 2 pallets at our dad's business, stacked high and ready to be shipped to Minnesota. The Nikki boy had downsized considerably more than the closets. The house looked like it had been ransacked by art thieves. Bare hooks pockmarked the walls that had displayed my Mom's paintings. Knickknacks were rearranged on the shelves where her sculptures had been. A hand-drawn smiley face dangled like a loose tooth in an empty space in the middle of the family photo montage. Confusion, shock, anger, and sadness avalanched in on me. See, in my grieving mind, my Mom and her home were one. Removing her treasures before she had moved out, much less passed on, was a desecration. It was as if my brother had dynamited the facade that I had unconsciously erected. As long as Mom's home remained beautiful and whole, well, she would as well. Then too, I had just assumed that nothing would be claimed until after our parents died, when we would work together as a family to divide their belongings fairly. Taking them unilaterally and prematurely was unthinkable. I couldn't bring myself to talk to my brother about it. We spoke briefly at Mom's funeral, and then again at Dad's a year later before moving on with a superficial long-distance relationship. But my pain festered for years. Oh, I forgave him, repeatedly. But I could never reconcile the brother I thought I knew with what he had done. Then I stumbled across Matthew verse 5:24 in my Bible, which says, leave your gift at the altar. Go first, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Well, the verse refers to the priority of relationship over religious ritual. So after much prayer, I worked up the courage to give him a call. On the other end of the line, my brother's voice sounded genuinely baffled. Les, he said, I live 2,000 miles away. At least you guys live in the same state. You had plenty of time to take or label the things that you wanted. I talked to Mom about it. She figured nobody wanted what was left, so I was welcome to it, with her blessing. I nearly dropped the phone. It had never occurred to him to check with anybody else. If only we had made a plan early and communicated it as a family, we could have avoided so much pain and regret. We ended the phone call with a measure of understanding and healing. My interactions with my brother now are cordial but infrequent. We may never be all that close, but through the crucible of losing first one parent and then the other, my sisters and I have formed a bond closer than ever. See, to me, relationships are the most important thing in the world. They're also the most vulnerable, especially when we're dealing with an ailing loved one and our own fragile, supersized emotions. Through the season of caring for our parents, my siblings and I experienced rifts, but also some of the most precious times of connection, loving on our mom and dad, and now loving on each other as we redefine our family and navigate a new normal together.